The Quinjet hummed softly as it soared high above Earth, the vast blue expanse of the ocean stretching endlessly below. Bruce Banner sat quietly in the cockpit, his hands gripping the controls as he replayed Black Widow's voice in his mind. "Come back, Bruce," she had pleaded over the comms. But he couldn't, he wouldn't. Not after the destruction the Hulk had caused in Johannesburg. The guilt was too much, the fear of losing control too great. Bruce sighed, his thoughts interrupted by an unexpected alert. The Quinjet's instruments began to flicker erratically, and the craft shook violently. "What the?" he muttered, scrambling to stabilize it. Outside, the sky rippled like water, a brilliant blue portal forming directly in the jet's path. Before Bruce could react, the Quinjet was pulled into the portal, the cockpit filling with a blinding light. He gritted his teeth as the jet spun uncontrollably, the world around him dissolving into chaos. When Bruce awoke, the first thing he noticed was the cold. Snowflakes fell gently onto his face, and the sharp bite of winter wind cut through his tattered clothing. Groaning, he pushed himself up from the wreckage of the Quinjet, which was scattered across a snowy plain. The landscape around him was alien. Jagged mountains loomed in the distance, and thick forests bordered the horizon. "What? Where am I?" Bruce muttered, shivering as he surveyed his surroundings. Before he could collect his thoughts, he heard the crunch of footsteps in the snow. Turning, he saw a group of rugged men and women dressed in furs and armor. They carried swords and axes, and their expressions were grim. "Another traveler," one of them said, his voice heavy with suspicion. "Looks like an Imperial spy." "I'm not a spy," Bruce said quickly, raising his hands. "I'm not from here." The leader, a tall man with a fierce gaze, stepped forward. "Then you're a fool to wander these lands. Tie him up. We'll sort this out later." Before Bruce could protest, the group surrounded him, binding his hands and leading him away. Bruce sat silently in a wooden cart, his hands bound as it rumbled along a snow-covered path. Around him were other prisoners, some sullen and resigned, others defiant. One man with piercing eyes and long hair introduced himself as Ralof, a Stormcloak soldier. "First time in Skyrim?" Ralof asked, his tone sardonic. "You could say that," Bruce replied, trying to make sense of the situation. He listened as Ralof explained the civil war between the Imperials and the Stormcloaks, led by the charismatic Jarl Ulfric. Bruce's scientific mind struggled to reconcile the medieval setting with the advanced technology he was used to. "Who are you really?" Ralof pressed. "No armor, no weapon. Yet you don't look afraid." Bruce avoided the question, focusing instead on the mountains that loomed closer. He needed to stay calm. The Hulk was the last thing these people needed to see. The cart eventually arrived in Helgen, a fortified village surrounded by towering stone walls. Bruce and the other prisoners were herded into the courtyard, where a grim-faced Imperial officer read their names from a list. When she got to Bruce, she hesitated. "You're not on the list," she said, narrowing her eyes. "I told you I don't belong here," Bruce replied. "Doesn't matter," the officer said coldly. "You'll face the same fate as the others." Bruce was pushed forward, his mind racing. He was no stranger to near-death situations, but this felt different. Surreal even. As he knelt before the executioner's block, his heartbeat quickened, and he fought to suppress the Hulk. Before the blade could fall, a deafening roar echoed across the sky. The ground trembled and villagers screamed as a massive black dragon descended upon the town. Its scales glistened in the firelight as it unleashed a torrent of flame, reducing buildings to rubble. Bruce's fear triggered the transformation. His muscles bulged and his skin turned green as the Hulk erupted from within. The chains binding him snapped like twigs and he roared, his massive fists smashing through debris to protect the fleeing villagers. Alduin turned its gaze toward the Hulk, momentarily distracted by the green giant's imposing presence. The two titanic beings clashed, Alduin's claws and fiery breath meeting Hulk's brute strength. The dragon's sheer size and agility allowed it to stay out of reach, but Hulk's rage fueled his relentless assault. Villagers and soldiers watched in awe and terror as the two titans battled, the destruction escalating with every blow. Bruce, buried deep within the Hulk, tried to regain control, but the raw chaos of the fight overwhelmed him. Eventually, Alduin roared and took to the skies, disappearing into the mountains. The town of Helgen lay in ruins, and the survivors stared in silence as Hulk stood amidst the wreckage, breathing heavily. Realizing the damage he had caused, the Hulk leaped away, disappearing into the wilderness. Hours later, Bruce awoke in a cave, his body trembling from exhaustion. His memories of the battle were fragmented, but the destruction was all too familiar. "Not again," he whispered, burying his face in his hands. Alone in this strange, hostile world, Bruce resolved to find answers. He needed to understand where he was, what the dragon was, and, most importantly, how to ensure the Hulk didn't cause more harm. As he stepped out of the cave into the icy dawn, Bruce's journey in Skyrim truly began. Bruce Banner trudged through the snowy wilderness of Skyrim, his breath visible in the frigid air. He had scavenged a tattered cloak from the ruins of Helgen to shield himself from the cold, but it did little to ease the biting chill or the weight of his thoughts. The memory of Alduin's attack and the Hulk's rampage haunted him. For the first time in years, he felt truly lost. Bruce's journey led him to the town of Riverwood, a quiet village nestled among the pines. Exhausted and starving, he approached the local blacksmith Alvor, who eyed him warily. After explaining his situation, or what little he could without revealing the Hulk, Bruce was given food and shelter in exchange for helping repair tools and gathering supplies. While staying in Riverwood, Bruce overheard villagers discussing dragons and a strange group called the Greybeards, who lived high atop the throat of the world. They summoned those with the blood of the dragon, an old woman whispered. Maybe they can stop Alduin. Hearing this sparked something in Bruce. If these Greybeards could stop Alduin, perhaps they could also help him control the Hulk. Determined, he set out for High Hrothgar, the monastery where the Greybeards resided. The journey to High Hrothgar was grueling, with steep paths and treacherous weather, but Bruce pressed on. As he ascended, he noticed a faint sense of calm settling over him. The air seemed charged with an ancient power that resonated with something deep within him. When Bruce finally reached the Greybeards, he was greeted by Arngir, their leader. The monk studied Bruce carefully before speaking. "You are not of this world," Arngir said, "but the power within you, it is undeniable. You are Dragonborn." "Dragonborn?" Bruce asked, confused. "I'm not sure what that means." Arngir explained that the Dragonborn was a mortal with the soul of a dragon, destined to fight Alduin and restore balance to the world. Bruce was skeptical, but the Greybeards insisted he possessed the Thu'um, the ability to wield the voice, a form of magic that allowed one to channel the power of dragons. "You've already shown your power," Arngir said. "The beast within you. It is both a curse and a gift. Perhaps through our teachings you can learn to wield it." The Greybeards began training Bruce in the way of the voice, teaching him the ancient language of dragons and how to focus his inner strength into shouts. The first lesson was a test of patience, requiring Bruce to meditate and find balance between his human intellect and the raw fury of the Hulk. At first, the training was grueling. Bruce's temper flared, and his transformations were unpredictable, often disrupting the lessons. The Hulk's rage clashed with the discipline of the voice, but with each passing day, Bruce began to make progress. He learned to channel the Hulk's strength into powerful shouts, such as unrelenting force, which sent shockwaves through the air. During one of his lessons, Bruce transformed into the Hulk, startling the Greybeards. Instead of dismissing him, Arngir saw an opportunity. "Even the Hulk can learn the way of the voice," he said. "Balance is not about denying what you are, it is about embracing it." With the Greybeard's guidance, Bruce began forging a deeper connection with the Hulk. He crafted armor from dragon bones and scales, creating a fearsome set of plate armor that suited the Hulk's massive frame. In this form, the Hulk became a terrifying yet noble warrior, earning the respect of the Greybeards and the villagers, who once feared him. As Bruce's reputation grew, word of the Green Dragonborn spread across Skyrim. Both the Imperials and Stormcloaks sought to recruit him, believing his strength could tip the scales in the ongoing civil war. Bruce, however, wanted no part in their conflict, seeing it as petty compared to the looming threat of Alduin. Despite his efforts to remain neutral, Bruce found himself drawn into the war when a village was attacked by Imperial forces. The sight of innocents suffering triggered his transformation into the Hulk, and he fought off the attackers, saving the villagers. The event cemented his status as a hero in Skyrim, but it also painted a target on his back. Meanwhile, Alduin's attacks grew more frequent and destructive. Reports of villages being razed by dragons flooded in, and the Greybeards warned Bruce that the time to confront Alduin was drawing near. However, they also cautioned that defeating the World Eater would require more than brute strength. "You must unite Skyrim," Arngir said. "Only together can its people stand against Alduin." Bruce was reluctant. His experiences on Earth had taught him the dangers of trying to lead, especially when the Hulk was involved. But as he looked out over the land he had come to know, he realized that he couldn't remain a bystander. Bruce began traveling across Skyrim, seeking to broker peace between the Imperials and the Stormcloaks. His efforts were met with resistance, as neither side trusted him fully. However, his feats of strength and bravery slowly won over both factions. He fought alongside Imperials to defend a stronghold from dragon attacks, and aided the Stormcloaks in liberating a village. As the alliances grew stronger, Bruce's confidence in his role as Dragonborn solidified. He began to embrace not just the Hulk's strength, but also his own intelligence and diplomacy. The Hulk, clad in his dragonbone armor, became a symbol of hope for the people of Skyrim. The united forces of Skyrim, Imperials, Stormcloaks, and villagers alike, assembled under Bruce Banner's leadership. Camps dotted the landscape beneath the throat of the world, their fires burning brightly against the cold winds. Soldiers trained alongside mages, blacksmiths forged new weapons, and dragons' roars echoed ominously in the distance. Bruce, clad in the Hulk's dragonbone armor, stood at the center of the camp. His presence inspired awe and confidence among the troops. But inside, Bruce was battling his own doubts. He gazed at the mountains where Alduin's shadow loomed, wondering if he was truly capable of leading these people, or stopping the World Eater. "I'm no general," Bruce confided to Lydia, a brave warrior who had sworn to protect him. "I don't know how to lead an army." "You don't need to be a general," Lydia replied. "You've already united people who fought each other for years. That's more than anyone else has done. They believe in you, Dragonborn. Now you need to believe in yourself." Before the final assault on Alduin, Bruce returned to High Hrothgar to consult the Greybeards. Arngir warned him that Alduin's power was growing, and that brute force alone wouldn't be enough to defeat him. "The voice is your greatest weapon," Arngir said, "but it is also a reflection of your soul. To master it fully, you must confront the chaos within." Taking this to heart, Bruce meditated, delving deep into his mind where he came face to face with the Hulk. The two aspects of his being clashed, each blaming the other for the destruction they had caused. But instead of fighting, Bruce reached out to the Hulk, offering understanding instead of control. "We're not enemies," Bruce said. "We're parts of the same whole. Together we can do more than destroy. We can protect." The Hulk roared in response, but gradually calmed. The two reached a fragile truce, and Bruce emerged from his meditation more in tune with his dual nature than ever before. As the united forces marched toward the throat of the world, Alduin unleashed his fury. Dragons descended from the skies, their fiery breath scorching the ground as the army scrambled to defend themselves. Bruce, sensing the chaos, allowed the Hulk to take over, his transformation galvanizing the troops. Hulk, wielding a massive dragonbone warhammer, leaped into the fray. With a single swing, he crushed a dragon's skull, roaring as his Thu'um echoed across the battlefield. Fus Roda. The shout sent shockwaves that toppled trees and scattered enemy forces. Meanwhile, mages cast protective wards over the troops, and archers fired volleys of enchanted arrows at the attacking dragons. The battle was fierce, and despite their losses, the army pressed forward, determined to reach Alduin's lair. Reaching the summit of the throat of the world, Bruce and his allies found Alduin waiting for them. The World Eater towered above them, his scales shimmering with dark energy, as he roared, shaking the very earth beneath their feet. "So the Dragonborn comes at last," Alduin sneered. "A mortal who dares defy the gods." Bruce stepped forward, his green form towering over the others. "You're no god," he said, his voice a deep growl. "You're just another monster that needs to be stopped." The battle began with Alduin unleashing waves of fire and frost, forcing the army to scatter. Bruce charged forward, using his shouts to counter Alduin's attacks. The Hulk's brute strength allowed him to grapple with the massive dragon, holding him in place while mages and soldiers attacked from a distance. As the battle raged, Bruce realized that Alduin's strength was tied to his command of the Thu'um. The dragon's shouts were devastating, scattering troops and creating fissures in the earth. To weaken Alduin, Bruce used the Dragon Wren's shout, Jor Zafrul, forcing Alduin to the ground. Pinned by the Hulk's grip, Alduin thrashed wildly, but Bruce refused to relent. The combined efforts of the army began to turn the tide, with mages casting binding spells and warriors striking at Alduin's vulnerable points. But Alduin, sensing his defeat, unleashed a desperate surge of power, summoning an army of lesser dragons to his aid. The battlefield erupted into chaos once more, and Bruce was forced to make a choice. Channeling all his rage, Bruce let the Hulk take full control. The dragonbone armor shimmered as the Hulk's fury reached its peak, amplifying his strength and power. He leaped into the air, grabbing Alduin by the neck and slamming him into the ground with enough force to create a massive crater. As Alduin tried to recover, Bruce unleashed one final Thu'um, Fus Roda. Combined with the Hulk's immense power, the shout created a shockwave that shattered the remaining dragons and brought Alduin to his knees. With Alduin defeated, the skies above Skyrim began to clear. The once dominant dragon crumbled into ash, his essence absorbed by Bruce, cementing his role as the Dragonborn. The army erupted into cheers, their victory hard-earned and bittersweet. But as Bruce reverted to his human form, he looked out over the battlefield, the cost of their triumph weighing heavily on him. He had saved Skyrim, but at what cost to himself and to the Hulk? Bruce standing atop the throat of the world, the echoes of the battle fading into silence. The final confrontation with Alduin is over, but Bruce knows his journey is far from complete. The aftermath of the battle at the throat of the world was both victorious and somber. The skies above Skyrim, once darkened by Alduin's presence, were now clear, and the lingering dragon attacks ceased. Soldiers, mages, and villagers gathered in silence around the battlefield, mourning their fallen comrades while celebrating their triumph. Bruce Banner, now back in his human form, stood among them, his mind racing as he grappled with what lay ahead. Arngir and the remaining Greybeards arrived at the summit, their expressions a mixture of relief and reverence. Alduin's reign is over, Arngir said solemnly, his voice echoing in the stillness. You have fulfilled your destiny, Dragonborn. Bruce shook his head, exhaustion evident in his eyes. Destiny. I didn't ask for this. I just did what had to be done. Lydia stepped forward, placing a hand on his shoulder. The people of Skyrim won't forget what you've done, Banner. You gave them hope when there was none. But Bruce was far from reassured. He had felt the power of the Thu'um and the rage of the Hulk combine in ways he had never imagined. The destruction he was capable of terrified him. I've stopped one monster, he said quietly. But what if I'm the next one? Arngir looked at Bruce with compassion. That is a question only you can answer. Balance is not easily kept, but it is the path you have chosen. As the victors began to descend from the mountain, Bruce felt a sudden, familiar tug in the pit of his stomach. America Chavez, battered but alive, appeared through a glowing star-shaped portal. She ran toward him, urgency written on her face. "Bruce," she shouted, "we've got a problem!" The portal behind her shimmered, showing glimpses of other realities ravaged by chaos. Strange creatures and fiery landscapes flashed before Bruce's eyes. The multiverse is still unstable, America explained. Alduin's defeat here is just one piece of a much bigger puzzle. Bruce's stomach sank. He had hoped that defeating Alduin would bring him some semblance of peace, but the danger to the multiverse was far from over. What do we do? He asked. America hesitated. We need you to come back. The Avengers, the other worlds, they need your strength. Before leaving, Bruce gathered his allies in Skyrim one last time. Standing before the people who had fought alongside him, he addressed the crowd. I came here by accident, he began, his voice carrying over the gathering. I didn't understand your world, your people, or your battles, but I've seen your strength, your courage, and your resilience. You don't need a Hulk or a Dragonborn to save you. You've proven you can save yourselves. The crowd erupted in cheers, and Bruce felt a rare flicker of pride. Lydia approached him, her expression conflicted. Are you sure you're leaving? Skyrim could use someone like you. Bruce smiled faintly. You've got this. Besides, I've got a universe to save. Arngir offered him a parting gift, an amulet engraved with the ancient symbols of the Greybeards. A reminder of your time here, Dragonborn, he said, and a symbol of the balance you have found. Bruce accepted the amulet gratefully, tucking it into his armor. As America opened a portal back to the multiverse, Bruce hesitated at the edge. He looked back at the throat of the world, the land of Skyrim stretching out beneath him. It had become more than just a battlefield. It had become a home, however briefly. But the multiverse called, and Bruce Banner never turned away from a fight. With a deep breath, Bruce stepped through the portal, the roaring winds of Skyrim fading into the hum of the Quinjet's instruments. The portal closed behind him, leaving Skyrim to its peace, and Bruce to his endless battle. Years later, the tale of the Green Dragonborn became legend in Skyrim. Songs were sung of the mighty warrior who fell from the skies, defeated Alduin, and united a fractured land. The dragonbone armor he wore was displayed in the halls of Whiterun, a reminder of his strength and sacrifice. And in the quiet, snowy peaks of the throat of the world, the Greybeards continued to whisper his name. Banner, the Dragonborn,